やー怪獣様のおとりだかっこよくなんでもぶっ飛ばせゴジラは放射能ミニラもポーポーポー脱線ガッタン脱線ガッタンみんな壊してしまうけどごめんよ勘弁俺たちも生きてゆくのは厳しいさ
people, LP2000 right back at you with another video. Yes, welcome back to another edition of Leslie Chambers Kaiju Reviews on behalf of Collect All Monsters. It's been a minute. I know it's been a minute since my last video, but if you saw my last video of the X Plus 30cm Favorite Sculptors line standard edition of Mechagodzilla 1974, woo, that was a mouthful. But if you have seen that video, I've teased at the very end of that video that the next video, which will be this video, will be about a monster or a character. Basically, everybody's favorite bully of Monster Island himself. Alright, you know, click the title, you know exactly who we're covering here in this awesome resin model kit review. So let's dive head first into this awesome resin model kit review. And today we'll take a look at the 35cm resin model kit of the Asu Kobo 1969 Gabara. Yes, everybody's favorite bully of Monster Island himself. From its appearance in 1969's All Monsters Attack, also known as Godzilla's Revenge. As you can see, I have the beautiful kit here in all his glory. And yes, this is a beautiful kit. Yes, it is. Let's get that out the way right now. This is a great, awesome kit, in my opinion. The quintessential Gabara you need in your collection if you are a fan of this monster. You know what I'm saying? I don't have the packaging because I got this figure loose. I'll go more into the backstory about that. That kind of plays into the packaging. But basically, we're going to skip the packaging and just go into the backstory. Alright? But I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to two special people making this video happen. First and foremost, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Dopko and Steve Ceragioli. And again, I'll go more into the backstory on how they play into this model kit. Alright? Now, the purpose of this review or this video is really kind of a random one, quite frankly. One day recently, I just came into my collection room, was vacuuming and doing just a few things around my area, rearranging some stuff, you know what I mean? I mean, stuff that we collectors normally do, you know what I'm saying? And I just happened to come across this figure. Now, again, I got this figure a long time ago. But when I came into my room that particular day, for some reason I was just drawn to it, right? And I was like, wow, that is an awesome model kit or collectible of Gabara. You know what I mean? And there's not too many realistic collectibles of this monster out there. So it made me appreciate the monster, or at least the character, or the collectible that I have of him so much more. You know what I mean? And I started thinking, I was like, you know what? Did I ever do a review of this guy? And I literally had to remind myself. I went back into the archives of my channel. I checked every single video. I know I touched upon it in certain videos, but I never did a figure review of it. And again, I was like, you know what? I'm going to rectify that situation right now because you already know recently I've been into the model kit thing as of late. And I was like, wow, I'm surprised this slipped under my radar. You know what I mean? So that's the purpose of me doing this review today. All right, and again, this is the 35 centimeter resin model kit of the Asu Kobo Gabara from Godzilla's Revenge. And how I got my hands on this model kit is actually this is a collaboration, if you will, a model kit collaboration between Steve Ceragioli and David Dopko, right? And what happened was I saw this figure, or at least this model kit, a long time ago. And from what I understand, I think originally Steve Ceragioli had the kit, because you know who Steve Ceragioli is, you know what I'm saying? He's a great model kit builder in our community, an amazing artist. He's one of the brain children behind the Roto Kaiju Kongs that have been coming out recently. You know what I'm saying? Just an awesome guy. And I think he had the kit first, and I think he worked on the eyes, if I'm not mistaken. But then I think he had the kit sent off to another great friend of mine, a fellow co-host on Collect All Monsters, another great artist, builder, and model kit extraordinaire, David Dopko, and I think he finished the rest of the kit with the body and the hair and all that good stuff. So again, it's a collaboration between those two artists. Getting something done by one of those guys is awesome. But getting something done by both of those guys at the same time is beyond awesome, if you ask me. And I think David eventually sold this off to another collector. And I saw this guy pop up on eBay one time, I think back in 2016. Yes, that's when I got it. I got it in 2016. And after I saw the eBay listing, I went back and forth on Facebook to find out if this was the actual kit, if it was the same kit that I've been looking at for all these many years. And lo and behold, it was. And I put a bid in for it, and I was able to get it, and that's how I got my hands on it. I remember that vividly. That was the same time that the original 25 centimeter X Plus Legion came out. And if you got that figure, you already know that thing was already expensive enough. And this guy was a little bit expensive. So let's just say my wallet was hating me that week, to be honest. And that is the backstory of how I got my hands on this kit. Again, having both David and Steve put their own spin on this, again, makes this collectible so worthwhile, so valuable. I am never selling this. Don't even ask me in the comment section. It is never going anywhere. But again, and the fact that both those guys are not only great artists in our community, but they're also my great close friends. And for that reason alone, which is why I will cherish this thing until I have no more breath in this massive body. You know what I mean? And that's the backstory how I got this guy. Now again, this is Asu Kobo. From what I understand from the Kaiju Kit's website database, this is Asu Kobo. I guess that's the sculptor who made this kit of Gabara. You know what I mean? But it's kind of interesting because when you go to that website, you know, it says Asu Kobo in the official listing of the kit, but it also shows a picture of the box that it came in. And it had a rod on it for some reason. I don't know what a rod is. Maybe y'all, whoever who has history with this kit, can tell me in the comment section what's the correlation between a rod and Asu Kobo. I'm going to just go by what the official listing says on the Kaiju Kit's website, which is Asu Kobo. And this is a 35 centimeter tall kit. Yes, it's a tall kit. You know what I'm saying? And it's really great. And from what I understand, after me doing some research on Asu Kobo, I don't recall them doing any other monsters. You know what I'm saying? This is the only one, for what I've seen, that they have done. And as I mentioned earlier, again, there's not too many super realistic representations of Gabara out there. And I know that's part of the fact that a lot of people don't really like Godzilla's Revenge. And I think Gabara kind of gets lumped in with that hate. I'll talk more about that towards the tail end of the video. But I think because Gabara is in that film, he gets lumped in with that and makes him not too desirable for a lot of collectors, which is understandable to a certain extent. But again, there's not too many super realistic versions or collectibles of him out there. You have this one. There are a few that is worth mentioning here. Of course, you have this one, and of course, you have the radioactive resin model kit of the Bully, sculpted by my great friend Burley Vang. He did an awesome rendition of Gabara through his company, through his studio, Radioactive Resin. And what he did to it was a great rendition of Gabara. You know what I'm saying? A really solid rendition, if you will, of Gabara. I know YSMF did one, you know what I'm saying? Not as big as this one, but I know YSMF did a figure of Gabara. Resin Chef did a sculpt of Gabara, you know what I mean? So I think those are really the top four the top best versions or collectibles of Gabara that we have ever gotten. But in my opinion, with all due respect to the other ones I just mentioned, I think this one is the best one that is in existence right now. And he's kind of hard to find. He really is hard to find. He's up there with some of the most sought after kits from Monster Maker 28. You know what I'm saying? Because this, in my opinion, is the most realistic, basically suit accurate version of Gabara that is out there. You know what I'm saying? Not trying to say it's impossible to find him out there. He is out there, but you really gonna have to look for him. And when you do look for him, he's gonna be really expensive. So I think if it's worth your while to go after this guy, if you do find one, I say go for it. Again, as I always say, don't go overboard with the investment. Don't go overboard with the investment. But if it's worth it to you, if you're able to find this guy, you know what I'm saying, get it, and I think you will enjoy it, especially if you're a fan of Gabara. Alright, so that's a backstory with me getting this figure, or the model kit I should say, the backstory with the company behind it, you know what I'm saying, the people who made it for me, all that good stuff. So let's get up close and personal with this guy. Again, this is the 35 centimeter Asu Kobo resin model kit of Gabara. Again, he's a tall guy, you know what I'm saying, a really tall model kit. You know, with Gabara having so much of a humanoid type of a frame or structure to his body, right? The only nitpick I would have with this model kit is the fact that, again, because he's very slim, kind of like Jet Jaguar or an Ultraman, something like that, he does not have a tail like a Godzilla or a Gigan to balance himself on the back end. So you have to be really careful because, again, he's kind of prone to topple over. If you like shake the table, I'm not going to do that here. But, you know, if he's in an environment where he's prone to get shook up a lot, he may come falling down. So be mindful of that if you do get this in your collection. That's the only nitpick I have with this model kit is the fact that, again, you have to be real mindful where you put him or position him on your shelf. Make sure he's in a position where he's not going to get rocked under any circumstances, where he's going to be stationary. And if you overcome that, I think that you'll be fine. But I think the sculpt of Gabara is perfect, you know, with his hand posture like that, you know what I'm saying, looks really good. The claws are sculpted really well. His hands, you know what I'm saying. The chest, oh my God, the chest of Gabara looks really good, really suit accurate. And if you look closely, there are like some small little holes in the neck of the suit right here, or the model kit. Again, signifies that realism, or that's where the actor would see and breathe out of whenever he was in the suit. No different with Godzilla, you know, with the poke holes in his neck, you know, in Godzilla's neck for Nakajima to see out of. It's the same thing here with Gabara, and it's replicated here in the sculpt here. So it looks really good. You know, the teeth individually sculpted, the mouth, great menacing, you know, teeth, you know, whatever, looks really good. The eyes are sculpted really well. I go to the paint job momentarily. That looks great. The horn on top of his head, the other horns going to the back of his head, looks really good. The toes look really good, sculpted really well. But I think really the main selling point of this model kit is just the skin texture of Gabara here. There's so much detail, enriched detail in the multiple bumps all over his body. It's kind of hard to describe, but it looks perfect. Kind of like Titanosaurus skin, if you really think about it. But the multiple bumps that comprise Gabara's skin here on this model kit, in my opinion, was sculpted great. You know what I'm saying? All the small bumps, the big bumps, the major bumps, just every single bump on his arms, on the back of the figure, on his legs, everything, it looks really great. The multiple bumps that comprise majority of the model kit, again, it looks really good. The simulated hair on top of his head, you know, it's not much there, but it looks really good. So I think the sculpt, again, is top notch. The sculpt is perfect when it comes to Gabara. And as I always say when it comes to model kit, the two most important things involved in the model kit is the sculpt has to be perfect and the paint job has to be perfect. And I think the sculpt is already perfect, so let's go towards the paint job. And again, that's where David Dopko and Steve Ceragioli come into play. And if you already know the work that those gentlemen have done, a few of those works you've seen on my channel, I'm sure on other people's channels, on Facebook, you know, or whatever. Those two are like the Jedi masters when it comes to model kit building and painting. They know exactly what they're doing in terms of mixing the right paints together to get the right color of the kaiju. You know what I'm saying? They just perfect. They are just, again, the best that our community has to offer. You know what I'm saying? Now let's start with Steve Ceragioli first, because in my opinion, for what I understand, he worked on the eyes, and I think the eyes look perfect on Gabara. Look at the way he made the eyes, the way he painted the eyes. You know what I'm saying? And he's done it many times before with other model kits, you know, or whatever. I think even David Dopko has said that when it comes to eyes, Steve is like the best person out there when it comes to eyes. And as you can see here in the work that he has done for Gabara, the eyes look perfect, you know, just the perfect shape of the eyes, you know, the pupil inside. It looks really, 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 really good. Now let's go towards the paint job of his mouth. Again, you know, with the gums and the yellow which tint of the teeth. Looks really, really good. The horns on his head, you know, have like a dirty bone white color. You know, the big horn on his head and the ones that go towards the back of his neck. Looks really, really good. Now the hair is not super, super orange like it was in the film. It's kind of like a muted orange. So it looks really, really good. Had no complaints there. Again, the chest looks great. You know, with the beige, dirty beige color of the chest. Again, kind of like Titanosaurus. So it looks really, really good. The toes, dirty bone white color on the toes, you know, whatever. And again, it's open to interpretation. You know what I'm saying? Because there are times Gabara looked like this in the film. There are times where Gabara had like a really super green texture to him. You know what I'm saying? So it's open to interpretation. You know what I'm saying? But I still think it does. It look exactly like Gabara from the film. Again, toenails look great. The claws on his hand look great. You know what I'm saying? It looks so good. So again, go back to what I said about the skin bumps on his body. Again, the turquoise green texture, or at least the paint scheme on Gabara here, it is absolutely perfect. It is so perfect. You have some black highlights within the crevices of each individual bump on the back of his body, or at least all over his body, I should say. It looks really great. It looks so great. So between the sculpt and the paint job, again, with all due respect to the bully, with all due respect to the YSMF Gabara, with all due respect to the resin chef, even X Plus made a Gabara not so long ago. The 25 centimeter Gabara, you know what I'm saying? That figure looks, looks good. But when you put that one up against this one, there's really no comparison. So in my opinion, with all due respect to the other Gabaras I mentioned, I think this is the quintessential one. This is the best one that is out there right now. And if you're able to find one in the wild, I highly suggest go after it. You know what I'm saying? And again, I was so amazed that, again, after that my passion for this figure was reignited when I came up to my room that random day. It's just funny. It's like, out of all the stuff in my room, I don't know why in that particular moment in time, I was drawn to this. You know what I'm saying? But I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoy like talking about past stuff that we have collected. Yet it's great to anticipate the new stuff that's coming down the pipeline. You know what I'm saying? There's no question about being excited about the new thing coming in. But I think also as collectors, I think also we get lost in the fact that sometimes by us anticipating and wanting a new thing, sometimes we forget about the great stuff that we accumulated in the past. And I know a lot of people, at least a lot of collectors, come up in their room or come into their collection space and they look at a particular piece and they look at it like, when did I get that? Or why did I get that? I don't want to be that type of collector, quite frankly. All due respect to collectors that do that, I don't want to be that way. So after I saw this again, or at least just paid more attention to it, I was like, you know what? This thing is awesome. It deserves a review. So that's why I'm doing it right now. So again, thank you to Steve. Thank you to David. And thank you to eBay, because this is a cool eBay story, unlike a lot of the other horrible eBay stores out there. But this is one of the few times where eBay actually came through on a good thing, you know what I'm saying? So there are good deals we had on eBay. You just have to find them. Just beware of the shady and really horribly overpriced ones. But again, if you're able to find this guy in the wild, I highly suggest it. And if you can't find this one, I highly recommend the Resin Chef. I highly recommend the Bully that Burley Radio at the Resin did. If you can find one, please do so. As long as we show more love to the Bully of Monster Island, it's the point I'm driving home at. You know what I'm saying? So that's it. That's it. Up close and personal, the backstory, all that good stuff. So let's do one size comparison in this video. I don't want to drown the figure review in too many different size comparisons. Really, there's only one size comparison that matters. And again, we already have Gabara here. And I know that this film of All Monsters Attack or Godzilla's Revenge is plagued with stock footage and plagued with appearances from older kaiju, from older movies, Sea Monster, some of Godzilla or whatever. But there are two other monsters that Gabara fought in this film, in Godzilla's Revenge. And of course, you know I'm talking about the Prince of the Monsters, Minya, and the King of the Monsters himself, his dad, Godzilla. So let's bring up the 30cm 1968, both Godzilla and Minya, and see how they pair up against the awesome terrorizing bully of Monster Island, Gabara, in his one only size comparison. So let's do that, ladies and gentlemen, right now. Okay, folks, here we are with the first and only size comparison in this video, and yes, alongside the 35cm resin model kit of the Asu Kobo Gabara, 1969, I have the two other main kaiju protagonists of this film, outside the stock footage ones. Of course, the king and prince of the monsters themselves, Godzilla and Minya. Of course, this is the X plus 30cm versions of both Godzilla and Minya, 1968. And as you can see here, they look well together, perfectly, if you will, up against Gabara. Now, for the longest time, I actually thought that Gabara and Godzilla were the same height. But if you go online and look up stats about Gabara or back history about Gabara, Gabara actually stands at 58 meters tall, whereas Godzilla stands at 50 meters tall. So you can actually get away with the setup here with Gabara being taller than Godzilla, because that's how it was in the film. And with the 68 Godzilla here, you know, with that particular Godzilla with his arms up and the fact he's kind of rearing back, you know, a little bit, looking upwards, you know, whatever. So him looking upwards at Gabara is really, really perfect. You know what I'm saying? Where do you have Minya up against Gabara? It still looks great. You know what I'm saying? So there's not much really going on here with the size comparison. You know, Gabara looks great up against other monsters, especially one-time monsters that made a one-time appearance in films, whether it's Batra, Destroyer, Titanosaurus, Megalon, Megaguirus, Orga, you know, whatever. It's those one appearance kaijus, one-hit wonders, if you will, that yes, they were only in one film, but yet they left an everlasting impression upon you as a fan. And I can tell you, Gabara has done that for me. Despite the film being not the best in the world, despite the film being virtually hated by a lot of Godzilla fans in the community, I am one of the fans in the vocal minority that say, I don't hate this film. I never hated this film. I enjoy it for what it is. And as an adult, I appreciate it more, and I go more into that towards the tail end of the video. But this size comparison looks great up against with Gabara up against Minya and Godzilla. And again, whether you have Gabara up against Godzilla, you know, just them two, or Gabara up against Minya, or Gabara up against the both of them at the same time, you know, you have a great, perfect setup of this resin model kit of Gabara up against Minya and Godzilla. So that's it with the size comparison, the one and only size comparison in this video, the one that really matters, quite frankly. And that's it. So let's go over the final commentary portion of the video with my final thoughts of the 35cm resin model kit of the Asu Kobo Gabara from All Monsters Attack. So let's do that, ladies and gentlemen, right now. Okay, folks, I'm back with my final thoughts of the 35cm resin model kit of the Asu Kobo Gabara 1969 from its epic appearance from Godzilla's Revenge, also known as All Monsters Attack. 10 out of 10. Again, as I said a few times before, I think this thing is perfect. I think this thing is flawless. I think this thing is amazing. In my opinion, the best super realistic version of Gabara that is out there. You know what I'm saying? That has ever been out there, in my opinion. With all due respect to the bully, with all due respect to the X plus 45cm version of Gabara, with all due respect to the resin chef. I mean, don't get me wrong, those are great versions of Gabara, but I think this one kind of rises above the rest, in my opinion. So again, if you're a huge fan of this monster or this movie, and that's kind of hard to find, kind of hard to find a fan of this film. I'm a fan of this film, but I'll talk more about that momentarily. But again, if you're in the hunt for a quality version of Gabara, you can try and find them out there in the internet or online, you know, whatever. Again, it's going to be easier said than done. But again, if you're able to come across it, never say never. Nothing is impossible. And when it comes to collecting nowadays. But if you're able to find this guy out there, again, I say go for it. Especially if you're a fan of the monster as well as a fan of the movie. Now, as you can see closely here, I have a certain little accessory that came with Gabara that I forgot to talk about earlier in the video. It comes with this blue plastic that kind of simulate the lightning, or at least the electrical power that Gabara can form with his hands, you know, whatever. So it's a nice little piece that you can put in Gabara's hand, you know, whatever. I think the guy who had this after David actually made this little plastic piece, you know, whatever. But it looks great once you put it in Gabara's hand, whether he stands alone, whether you have him up against Minya, shocking the crap out of Minya. which made Gabara more so a hero in the film versus a villain. Or if you have him with the lightning attack thing up against Godzilla himself, it looks great, you know, whatever. So it's a nice little accessory, kind of like a Rick option, if you will, that came with the model kit itself, you know, whatever. But again, 10 out of 10, top to bottom. Sculpt, paint job, again, courtesy of the awesome Araid Dopko and Steve Ceragioli, combined with the awesome sculpt. Again, in my opinion, the best super realistic version or collectible of everybody's favorite bullying monster from Monster Island, Gabara. Now, let's talk about the film that he was in. Now, we all know that this film, Godzilla's Revenge, is looked upon as like one of the worst, if not the worst, Godzilla film in the franchise. This film is not well liked by a lot of people in the franchise, at least in the fandom. This film, some would say, is the Jaws of Revenge of the Godzilla series. It is the Moonraker of the Godzilla series. It is the Phantom Menace of the Godzilla film series. It is the Batman and Robin. It is the Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. The King Kong Lives of the Godzilla franchise. Needless to say, this film is not the most beloved film in the franchise. A lot of people hate this film. But I am one of the vocal minority that actually not only enjoys this film, I like this film, but I actually appreciate this film, right? And as I've gotten older and want to learn more about the history about these films and these monsters and where they came from and all that good stuff, All Monsters Attack is really interesting one. Considering the fact that around this time, the special effects wizard of the films back then, A.G. Subaraya, was on his deathbed. He really didn't touch the film, but he was still receiving honorary credit, right, for doing stuff on the film, even though he never did. The screenplay writer of these great, awesome films from the 60s, Shinichi Sekizawa, openly complained that he had run out of ideas, that there were no new monsters left to create for Godzilla to fight. That was one thing that was kind of plaguing the series as of late. The rise of television and all these, you know, Ultraman shows and monster shows that was basically offering what you can see for free on TV, what they were offering in a movie theater. So again, there was no point of going to the movie theaters and pay money to see something that you could see at home for free, similar for free. So you had that going on. That kind of splintered the monster audience, quite frankly. Not to mention that the prestige that the Godzilla films once commanded, like in the early 60s, you know, whatever, it kind of cut off like A-list actors from America that wanted to come in and be a part of the franchise. By them turning Godzilla into a babyface and Ghidorah the three-headed monster, even though the films behind it were great in my opinion, the box office performance for these films kept diminishing year after year after year. It was like a slow decline, if you will. So at this point in 1969, basically the potential revenues of a future Godzilla film weren't really justified enough to make a new Godzilla film, if that makes sense. Really, this film was inspired by the Gamera series, specifically Gamera vs. Viras and Gamera vs. Giron, because if you watch those films were padded with stock footage of past Gamera adventures to pad the runtime, you know, whatever. So that cost-cutting approach intrigued Toho, which would carry over into the 70s films. So with this film in particular, the task was to make a new Godzilla film, try and save money, but the idea was to build a new Godzilla film around bits and pieces of old Godzilla films. Hence why we got All Monsters Attack. And the reason why, at least one of the few reasons why I really enjoy this film and I don't really condemn it like a lot of Godzilla fans do, and I said this a few times before on my channel, that I saw a lot of myself in Ichiro. You know what I'm saying? Don't want to go into a more deep personal history with me, but my parents were like that, where they worked long hours, and I have an older sibling, I have an older brother, but we're like a decade apart. And so by the time I got like into middle school or whatever, he was like going on to college. So there were a lot of times I would come home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon after school, when school let out at 3 o'clock. Yeah, I'm that old. And my mom didn't get off work till after 5:30 or 6, so I wouldn't see her. It's like around 6:30. My dad had multiple jobs, so I didn't see him until late into the evening. So like from 3 o'clock until like maybe 5 or 6 every single day, I had to resort to what Ichiro did, which is try to entertain myself until my family got home, you know, whatever. And I take nothing away from my parents, because they did what they did to ensure I had a great life. So I take nothing away from that. But I saw a lot of myself in Ichiro, even back then when I first watched the film. But I think it's also a shame that Gabara, as a monster, gets lumped in with the fact that this film is not so great. Even though there are reasons why the film is not so great, quite frankly. But I think it's a shame that Gabara, kind of like Megalon to a certain extent, because Megalon, as much as I love Megalon, that film was not well received by the fandom either, at least by the majority of people in the fandom. But I think it's a shame that these awesome monsters, these awesome creations, because they're in a bad film, or a questionable film, they get lumped in with them being bad. And I don't think that's the case. I think if Gabara was in a better film with a better budget and utilized better, he probably could be up there with the likes of Hedra or maybe Gigan, you know, whatever. Just these monsters that have like a 1 or 2 time appearance, but yet leave an everlasting impression amongst a lot of people. But again, because this film is not the best in the world, again, I think Gabara gets lumped in with him being bad. I don't think that's the case. You know what I'm saying? So aside from Gabara himself being one of the great things about this film, yes, I said great, and I stand by that. What I appreciate about this film that I have just realized after rewatching the film a few times as of late, and I have never come to this realization before. But if you sit down and think about it, because this film, all the monster action that happens, all happens within the mind of Ichiro. The monster action, Godzilla fighting Gabara, Minya having trouble with Gabara, doesn't really exist in the continuity of the rest of the Showa period. And I get it, the Showa period wasn't really the best in the world when it came to continuity. I get that, but really, Gabara is not a real monster within the context of the Toho universe, quite frankly. But what I appreciate about this film, that when you sit down and think about it, take away the stock footage, take away there was a child actor involved, take away that even though the film is titled Behind Godzilla and his name, the movie is not really about Godzilla, it's about Ichiro, that this film was really made from the Godzilla fans' perspective, because Ichiro was a Godzilla fan. And so, how to explain the stock footage, because the stock footage has never really bothered me, to be honest with you. But when you see Ichiro navigate his way through Monster Island and he sees Godzilla fight Kamacuras, or Godzilla fight Ebera, or Godzilla fight Kumonga, and of course those are clips taken from older Godzilla movies where Godzilla looks different in every single shot, basically by Ichiro being a fan and watching the movies. I think in this film, in Godzilla's Revenge, it's not really specified that Godzilla is real in Ichiro's world. I think in this film, Godzilla is just a movie monster to Ichiro. So Ichiro navigating through Monster Island and seeing all these various monster fights that he has seen in various movies up until that time does kind of make sense. So in a way, this film, take it or leave it, love it or hate it, or whatever the case may be, in my opinion, this film more so is about the Godzilla fans' perspective. And think about it. How many times when you were a kid and you watched Godzilla that you imagined going to Monster Island or going to see Godzilla fight other monsters, or just being involved with Godzilla in general? I'm sure every Godzilla fan has done that, where we have imagined ourselves in a scenario where we're with our favorite monster hero. So I think for those of us who did do that, to condemn Godzilla's Revenge for doing the exact same thing that we did in our real lives, I think there's a bad disconnect there. So that's why I will always defend Godzilla's Revenge. You can hate me all you want. You can hate my opinion all you want. You can say I'm wrong for feeling that way, or whatever the case may be. But again, I can't be with the majority of people that hate this film. Is it lacking in comparison to the other 60s films? Absolutely. It is not like Monster Zero. It is not like Destroy All Monsters. It is not like Monster vs. Godzilla. It is not like War of the Gargantuas. It is not like Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. Yes, it is lacking in that regard. But what it makes up for it is the fact that it has charm, it has heart, and a film. And again, I think this film was made from a Godzilla fan's perspective. And you get an anti-bullying messages on top of it. So I think that is the real beauty behind Godzilla's Revenge. And I hope I can convince y'all to at least come around on that just a little bit. I'm not saying that it should be your favorite. I'm not saying it should be in your top 10. I'm not saying that it should just rise up above what your current favorite films are. But I do suggest and advocate that you rewatch this film, gain a newfound appreciation for it, and try to look at it from a different perspective. And maybe, just maybe, you might just like it. And you may come around on the fact that this film isn't the worst Godzilla film in the franchise. But again, only rewatching and really understanding the story and the backstory behind this film and appreciating Gabara, I think will make you come around on that. And again, it was a random thing for me wanting to cover this model kit. But at the same time, I would never pass up a chance to talk about the awesomeness, in my opinion, what the good things, what great things that Godzilla's Revenge has to offer. A lot of times that film is condemned and talk about what it did wrong and all the bad stuff with it. But I'm, again, one of the vocal minority that will praise with what this film did right. And it did a lot more right than people give credit for. You know what I'm saying? But again, if you're in the market for a quality, high quality piece or collectible of the bullying monster of Monster Island, Gabara, look no further than this kit right here. If you're able to find it in the aftermarket of the Asu Kobo Gabara 1969. Yes, yes, yes. So that pretty much concludes my review of the 35cm resin model kit of the Asu Kobo Gabara 1969. From its super cool appearance in 1969's All Monsters Attack, also known as Godzilla's Revenge. If you have any questions, comment down in the comment section. Hit me on Facebook via Let's Be Channels. We'll definitely go from there. Yes, once again, great model kit. Again, thank you to Dave. Thank you to Steve. Thank you for hooking me up with this quality paint job and all that good stuff. Again, this thing will never leave my collection. As I talked about a few times before, if I were able to lose my house and everything, I guess it'll be me, Sandra the dolls, and Gabara in the cardboard box. But seriously, that's how much this thing means to me. This thing is great, 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 great. And again, if you're able to find one for a good price in the aftermarket, again, that's easier said than done because this thing is really rare. It really is. But he does pop up from time to time. So again, just put in the work and pop up online at any given moment. You may see him. And if you do see him, go for it. Because again, if you're a fan of the movie and a fan of the monster itself or the character itself, you owe it to yourself to go after this piece. No question about that. If you can't find him, hit up Burly Vein for the bully or try to get the resin chef Gabara. Either way, try and get one of those three. If you're a huge fan of Gabara and you want a quality one in your collection, hit up those three. But if you want to go for the best, in my opinion, go for this guy right here. Yes, yes, yes. Now, the last couple of videos, I've done non-Godzilla characters, you know, of course, with the King Ghidorah 2019 from X Plus. You have Gabara here. Last I did Mechagodzilla 74. I think it's about time that we go back to the King of the Monsters. And in the next video, we will talk about the second Godzilla that attacked Japan. I think you know who I'm talking about, so please stay tuned for that video with the KOC 40cm 1955 Godzilla, also known as Gigantus. That will be coming up real, real soon on Leslie Chambers Kaiju Review. So thanks so much for watching this video. And again, thank you for hearing me out. If you have heard me out on my reasonings behind why I appreciate Godzilla's Revenge and why I implore more people to just give it a little slack a little bit, you know, rewatch it, try to gain a newfound appreciation for it, and you might like it. Again, I'm not expecting for it to be your top 10. I'm not expecting for it to be one of your favorites. I'm not expecting to be just shoot up there in terms of how you like Godzilla films, in terms of your favorites. But I do agree that this film gets a lot more hate than it gets. And hopefully a rewatching will kind of make you come around on that. You know what I'm saying? So please do that. Watch Godzilla's Revenge and gain a newfound appreciation for it. But until then, this is an awesome model kit of Gabara, the quintessential Gabara piece, if you will. So ladies and gentlemen, I finally give to you the 35cm resin model kit of the Asu Kobo Gabara 1969 from its epic appearance from All Monsters Attack, also known as Godzilla's Revenge. Yes, yes. So I thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. And I will see y'all again on this figure move review. All right? Y'all take it easy.